Well, welcome everybody. I'm Stacie Greco with the Alachua County Environmental Protection Department. I'm super excited to be talking to you today about some of my work. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself so you can help believe that I'm a credible source for this information. So I got my undergraduate in environmental chemistry from Warren Wilson College, which is a small school in Asheville, North Carolina. And then I went to the Caribbean to live on a sailboat for a year, leading kayaking trips. And once I realized I was part of the problems down there, I came back to the States and did environmental consulting for a year in Asheville. And then I came down to Florida to get my master's degree from the University of Florida, go Gators. And that was in environmental engineering. And when I was finishing that up, I started as an intern with Alachua County collecting water quality samples. I've been here 16 years now, and currently I run our water resources program. So we do monitoring, we do regulatory programs, education. If it has water in it, we're doing it. We have a stormwater program. And today I'm mostly going to focus on some of our regulatory programs and our education programs related to landscapes. So I'm going to dive right in. So I'm starting out with some water use data to just kind of set the stage here. So this is groundwater data. This is the water that we solely rely on here in Alachua County. We're in the middle of the state, city of Gainesville. Most of you probably know where we are. And this is from 2010. There's updated data, but the story hasn't changed. So basically, the largest water use here in Alachua County is public supply. So that's all water that's purchased from a utility. So it's mainly residential. It's also commercial. It's your businesses, your hotels, et cetera. And so that's metered water because you're paying for it. You want to know how much you're using. So that is 26 million gallons a day here in Alachua. Second up is agriculture, and that was almost 20 million gallons a day in 2010. That is red because that's estimated based on the crop coverage, what they're growing, the weather conditions. There's a move to make that more of a measured metric, either through meters or through electricity use, which is great because when you look at our neighboring counties and in the state, ag is a huge water user. So we want to get a good accounting of how much is being used. Domestic self-supply is the third largest use, and that's private wells. So that could also be landscaping. Recreational, that is golf courses. So that's not very, typically it's mostly golf courses. Not very big here in Alachua County, but some of you might be in some of the coastal areas where that makes up a large portion of your water use. So when we drill down, so that public supply is largely residential use. So when we look at how are people using that water, the main takeaway from this pie chart is it's outdoors. So especially if somebody has an irrigation system, outdoor water use can make up 60% of their water budget. And then drilling down even more locally, we know we have at least 15,000 irrigation systems in Alachua County. And this is just landscape. This isn't agriculture. This is people's yards. And there was a study done probably about 5 or 6 years ago now. The University of Florida Program for Resource Efficient Communities did it, where they were looking at newer construction with irrigation and without. And if a home had an irrigation system, it used 358 gallons of water per day on average, compared to 190 gallons if they didn't have an irrigation system. So that's a pretty big difference, and that's pretty concerning because there's a trend where most new construction has irrigation. So we knew we had to do something to curb that use from existing systems and from new systems that would be coming online as we develop. So what's Alachua County doing about it? So we focus a lot of our time on landscapes because we know it's one of the biggest water uses and it's one that we have jurisdiction over. Really, local government doesn't have a say over agricultural water use and the best management practices there on agriculture. So what we're doing, we have educational programs, and really the goal is to try to shift our landscaping paradigm. Let's try to get people to understand that having a mixed species lawn or more of your Florida friendly landscaping or a brown lawn in the winter after we get a freeze or a yellow lawn during a drought, that those things are okay and socially acceptable. And shifting a paradigm takes time. So we use various tools for that, um, social media, television, billboards, and I'll go into some of our efforts. We also have a turf swap landscaping rebate program where we're actually helping people to remove those thirsty landscapes and replace it with things that are less intensive. But I'm not going to talk about that today because Holly Greer is going to do a fabulous presentation on that on August 21st. So I hope you can tune in for that. So we also use regulatory tools. So our main goal there with the tools I'll talk about today is to reduce irrigation and fertilizer use because we know those can impact our water quality. So our irrigation efficiency design code, we'll go into that, irrigation restrictions, and our fertilizer code. We also have a new Florida Friendly code geared towards homeowners associations. And again, Holly will go over that in August. So let's dive in. I'm going to start with the educational programs. So we tried to use social marketing. And social marketing is the use of traditional marketing tools to influence behaviors for a greater good. I did end up getting a graduate certificate in social marketing. So I've really been trying to apply it to everything that we do. So a big thing is to identify a target audience for a focused behavior specific message. And this is really hard for us in the environmental field because when I'm, looking at a behavior, using less water, okay, who do I want to do it? Well, I want everyone to do it. When do I want to do it? All the time. But it doesn't work that way. We need to narrow it down a little bit. And there's different ways to segment your audience. So for example, it might be willingness to change. So with our turf swap rebate program, we're targeting people that already have been wanting to change. And now all of a sudden there's money available to help them to do it. Might be demographics. So with our Pet Waste campaign, we're obviously going to focus on pet owners. Might be behavior. So with a lot of our water conservation and irrigation, we focus on people that use their irrigation system. So we can look at their water use to determine that. All right, I'm going to pause and I'm going to plug in my headphones and see if that makes it so everybody can hear me better. Let's see how this works. I'm on the right way. All right, is this plugged in? It might not be because that is not plugged in. Let me try the back. Valerie, you can nod your head if I can't hear you. That's better? Doesn't seem like, okay, there, it's on. Is that better? The mute button on Zoom. All right, let's, where? Okay, so go to micro, microphone two. Okay, so that's back the way it was. Do you want me to just get closer? Will that help? Okay, so taking these off, do you want me to unplug them so we're not getting feedback? It's all part of the aid, education in Corona. All right, let me fix. Okay, is this any better? And I'll try to speak up a little bit too. Okay, thank you. All right. So another thing with social marketing is really trying to reduce the barriers. Why aren't people doing the behavior you're asking? And to highlight the benefits. If they do, what's in it for them? So basically, it's applying the marketing tools that got you to go to Starbucks versus Dunkin' Donuts and applying it to behaviors. So an example is our grass clippings campaign. We had to do research to figure out how are we going to get people to stop leaving a bunch of grass clippings in the road that then clog the storm drain. So we did focus groups and interviews, and we learned that government was seen as the worst offender and that the industry felt that they were doing a good job. So landscapers felt like they were doing a good job and they were pointing their finger at us. So what we learned was we needed to have the government be part of this campaign and make sure we were doing a great job. And we had it be join us professionals. We really highlighted that the professionals are doing the right thing, because then the psychology, if you're seeing yourself modeled as doing the right thing, you need to make sure you're doing the right thing. And then we made sure that government employees were a target audience, and we continue to work with them every single year. So another example is our pet waste campaign. Obviously, Alachua County is not the first community to deal with a pet waste issue. So we were able to do a literature review, and we learned that one of the main reasons to pick up pet waste is so you don't step in it. So this poster here to the right, you'll see that it's highlighting that someone stepped in pet waste. So if you clean up after your dog, you're not going to step in it. So that's highlighting a benefit. A barrier was not having a bag. So we now have these bag dispensers pictured here that we distribute to all the adoption agencies. Because if people are adopting new behaviors like they are when they're adopting a pet, that's a good time to add another one on there. But it's also important to pay attention to the messenger. With our pet waste campaign, we don't want people to listen to me at the county. We want people to listen to their vet. So we actually distribute a lot of those materials through the vet offices. And Valerie, if you want to show that little clip of the pet waste, this is a commercial we did.
Dogs can't pick up after themselves.
Mommy!
So even in your own yard, scoop the poop, bag it, and trash it. Clean creeks, clean yards, clean feet. A message from the Gainesville Clean Water Partnership.
Okay. So that highlighted the benefit of cleaning up after your pet. So social media is a social marketing tool, but they're not the same thing. A lot of people think that they are, but social media can be a great tool. It's very cost effective. So for example, this was something we did a boosted post. That means I'm that annoying ad that shows up in your feed when you're scrolling down. So for $100, we reached 35,000 people with a message about irrigation restrictions. The great thing about this, well, sometimes it's great, is that you can also have a dialogue. So for this, we almost always get people that comment that say, oh, I'm on a well. I don't have to follow the irrigation restrictions. Well, I'm able to pop on there and say, well, actually, irrigation restrictions apply to people on wells also. So it can be a good way to address some of those myths. You have to have thick skin though, because people will say all types of things, and I don't respond to people that are just baiting me to get into an argument. So I mentioned we're trying to shift our perception of an ideal yard. And unfortunately, if I told all of you, shut your eyes and picture the yard of the month, you might picture a monoculture bright green lawn, even though you might not believe that that is what you want your yard to look like or what people's yards should look like. But there's a lot of marketing dollars that are really making that the norm. And we're trying to shift that. So this was something we just did a photo contest asking people to send pictures of their springs friendly yard that don't use irrigation or fertilizer. And then they could win passes to Blue Springs Park. That's when it was a private park and was more expensive to get into. So we reached 50,000 people. We had 54 photos that we could comment on. So this is just an example of something that can be, really inexpensive to do and can really be a conversation starter. And I was able to comment on all of the pictures. So this was the winner. And you can see they obviously use their leaf litter on site and don't worry about blowing and mowing and raking all of that up. So it was a great place to have some conversations about people's landscapes. So our aquifer awareness campaign. Um, so we do a survey every year to help us determine how are we doing with our programs. Like, are we succeeding? What other issues do we need to be addressing? And we noticed on our surveys that less than 50% of residents know that their drinking water is groundwater from the aquifer. And a lot of our messaging is use less water to protect the springs. So that kind of breaks down if people don't understand how their water is connected to the springs, that it's the aquifer that then recharges the springs. So if they use too much, there's not enough to go to the springs. So we decided I don't typically like to do an awareness campaign because I'm really more outcome focused. I want to change the behavior, not just make people more aware of issues. But we realized that we needed to start with the awareness and then add in specific behaviors, which we're hoping to do next year. So we did a billboard near Archer Road in Southwest 34th Street. If you ever come to Gainesville, this is a very busy area, and we reached over 4 million people just in July alone. We did social media also, where 92,000 people saw it, and 7,000 people viewed a little educational video. We got 10,000 more to revisit it in 2020. We just finished up. I'll show you some images from that. And then I just applied for a grant to try to do year 3, where we could add specific behaviors into it to tie on to what we're doing. So this is a billboard. So really trying to show that when you turn on that sprinkler, you're sucking up water from our aquifer, and it would be going to our springs if we weren't using it. So on all of these, I'm going to show you just some of the metrics for those of you that are interested in it. This billboard was up for a little bit over or a little bit less than a month, and it cost us, $3,300, and we reached 376 people. Those are reported by the companies, so do with it what you will. We also did print advertising. So in a billboard, you really can't say much because people are driving by very fast. So these ads, we were able to have a little paragraph to explain the issue more, but it had similar imaging. And if people see things in more than one place and you want them to see it a lot in a short period of time, they're more likely to absorb it, take it in, and recall it. So we did 3 Sundays at $1,000, and this went to about 60,000 people. And I know you can't probably read all of that. We did buses this year too. For me, the jury's still out on how I feel about bus advertising. I don't have the data back on this yet. The schedule got changed because of COVID. The bus routes got canceled and changed, so that was fun. But we'll see. So one thing we'll do in our survey, we'll see if we move the needle with if people know where we get our drinking water from, and we'll also ask them, where did you see that information, and we'll see if buses show up on that. This I just wanted to show. This was part of a grant where I was in a state park camping and realized, wow, I'm having this great experience. There's no messaging in the bathrooms, and it seems like people are really open to messaging because they're having this experience in nature. So we worked with the state park system, and we made these little signs in some of the state parks in the Springs area up near where I am. Went into 56 showers, a bunch of bathroom stalls, and sinks. And I just want you to notice that it does have a specific behavior. It's not just you ought to save water for the springs, because people think that they're saving water all the time, but you need to give them something specific. So shower in 5 minutes or less, people might think, oh no, I take a 20-minute shower. So it's giving people a benchmark to see really, are they conserving water or not? And you'll see it's got that imaging of showing, a pipe going into the groundwater, pulling the water up. So trying to get that image out there in multiple mediums. This was a fun grant where we did stakeholder paddling trips, just want to get people out in nature to experience it. And we did basically informal talks, just one-on-one while you're paddling. I was in a single kayak, so I could just mingle with everybody. And the stakeholders were elected officials, people from agriculture, developers, builders, environmental community, landscapers, educators, and we mixed everyone together, which was fun. And it was just a great time for everyone to experience it and learn, but not in your typical classroom setting. This was time consuming. It is hard to get your decision makers and your important people to show up to events, even if you're giving them free lunch and a free paddling trip. But it's worth it when you can get them out there and you can get some of these people having conversations while they're seeing, you know, the whole issues that we're talking about. So those were a fun grant that we got to do. So I'm going to switch into regulatory, and I want to just for a moment mention voluntary versus regulatory. So there's I think voluntary is great, but if you have regulatory tools, use them. So the Florida Water Star program is a voluntary certification program for new construction, so that they are conserving water right when they're built. So the programs existed for a long time, and we just don't have many houses that are certified in Alachua County. We got a rebate that we would offer a $700 or grant, so a $700 rebate for builders that achieved the standard, and 10 rebates were issued all to one builder. So 700 just wasn't enough for this target audience for them to learn this new program, even though they basically had to meet the standards anyways. But what's important about this is when we got our irrigation design code passed, which is the next thing I'm going to talk about, the building community said, we want to do the right thing. Let's not regulate us. Let's do an educational program. Let's do a voluntary program first. And I was able to point to WaterStar and say, it exists, but no one's participating. So sometimes, you really have to move the needle, go in and do a regulatory program. So I showed you how many irrigation systems we had in Alachua County. So we wanted to make sure that they were as efficient as possible. So we got this actually adopted in 2015. It went into effect April of 2016. So now every irrigation system within Alachua County, and again, this is just landscape, not ag, goes through an approval process. They have to submit plans, they pay fees, and they have to meet our design criteria. There's an inspection. Sometimes it's a county inspection that our staff is doing. Sometimes it's self-inspection if they're self-certified. And before this, irrigation professionals were previously an unregulated industry, which is nuts since that's one of the biggest water uses in our state. The industry actually wanted to be regulated, and in 2013 went to the state. The state did a study, and it wasn't a very regulatory friendly political year, and said, no, try a voluntary license. And the state and the industry wants to be regulated because it's hard for them to understand what are the rules in Alachua County versus Marion, Volusia. Everyone has different rules. That's challenging for them. So I'd love to see a statewide irrigation design code, even if it puts mine out of business. So the major provisions of the code, you guys aren't irrigation nerds, so I won't really go into it, but it's based on the Florida Water Star program. So it's research-based, and it's trying to reduce the amount of high volume irrigation that we have. It reduces the maximum irrigated area is 1/2 acre, and then it just has the best management practices like separate zones for your head types, no high volume on shrubs. If you want to irrigate those shrubs, it's got to be micro irrigation. And it's just trying to get rid of these silly landscaping decisions like pictured here. That turf there is never going to do well. It's impossible to irrigate without watering the pavement, which doesn't need the water. So it really was trying to get rid of things like that. We added in 2019 that all new systems have to have a soil moisture sensor or a smart controller. All irrigation systems already require a shutoff device that turns the system off if we're getting sufficient rainfall, and that's pictured on the top. But those tend to not work that well. So Dr. Duke at UF has been doing some studies, and they're showing that not a lot of savings with those systems, whereas you can get up to 40% savings with the soil moisture sensors or the smart controllers. That was in Orange County with people that are using their irrigation systems, obviously. It does add more costs, but we think it'll get us more savings. So we went ahead and added that when we revised the code in 2019. Irrigation restrictions, we do enforce these. Irrigation restrictions are statewide. They're a little bit different based on where you live. Sometimes the local government enforces it. Sometimes it's the water management district. So we actually had funding that we started an like a inspection program in high water use areas where we drive around. So basically we were the water cop, and we sent warning letters when we caught people violating the restrictions. UF did a study of that data and showed that within a year period, we saved an estimated 5.5 million gallons of water, but that people's water creeped up over time, so that we need to have a continual presence. So we have been continuing that program. The funding for it has since gone away, but we were able to work it into our daily activities. So we do drive around. Our vehicle's about to get a full vehicle wrap, which we're really excited about. I think just the presence, when we're driving very slow through these neighborhoods in our marked vehicle, people know what we're doing. And so it does change their irrigation behaviors. So our fertilizer code, we made some changes to that. Retailers must display signage provided by the county, and that's what is shown here. So we go out, it's 11 by 17 laminated, and we hand these out to all of the stores that are selling fertilizer. And then we go back out, make sure they're hanging them up. So it really helps people to understand that, you know, they need to think about their fertilizer behaviors, because unfortunately, we're not allowed to ban the sale of fertilizer because the state preempted that. Pinellas County has done it, but then after Pinellas did it, the state did a preemption. So that's something we're trying to have the state reverse. So fertilizer with phosphorus is only allowed if a soil or tissue test verifies. Again, this is landscape, not agriculture, not your vegetable gardens. The big change that we did in 2019 is that fertilizer with nitrogen is only allowed March through June and must have at least 50% slow release nitrogen. So we've had a winter ban for years because the roots, you know, in the winter, they're not really sucking up a lot of nutrients, don't want people using fertilizer. We added the later summer months when rains are typically heavier and things can wash off or be pushed past the roots. So how are we implementing it? Luckily, I was able to get funding through the 319 public education grants, and we're doing a lot of media that I'll go over. We did a press release and got some coverage on the media, emails to the stores and the landscaping companies, newsletters from us and from the extension agents. That really helps a lot, and getting the signs out to the stores. So enforcement, we did do a landscaping blitz recently where we drove around in the high maintenance neighborhoods and talked to the landscapers. Everyone was aware of the ban, so now we'll have to just make sure that they're following it. So we will probably be collecting some samples because they can still use products, it just can't have nitrogen or phosphorus in it. We'll probably have to collect some samples and see what's in it. And we'll obviously respond to complaints. Unfortunately, we will not be, well, we won't be hiding in people's garages and seeing what homeowners are doing on Saturdays, but we will be responding to complaints. So if someone calls something into us, we can reach out to a homeowner and make sure they're aware of the ban and go over it with them. So our education campaign, I had funding to do a campaign to really ask people not to fertilize at all. So we were going to go after that target audience of people that were already aware of the issues and had a high willingness to change. And then I was asked to really work on this fertilizer code and do the summer ban. And I was a little worried, oh my gosh, I'm going to have two campaigns going with different messages. So we ended up merging them. So we used some of our grant campaigns to let people know about the ban, and then also did additional marketing to say, hey, just because you can fertilize, you might not need to or want to. So all of those materials were designed. We did a couple surveys, and those had like mock materials, and we got people's opinions. That's a really good way if you can't bring people face to face to talk about your campaign materials. And we're going to quantify, and I'll go into that more. So I'm just going to show you some of the images, and I won't read, but the stuff on the left, that's the copy. So this is stuff that went on to social media. So the idea here, backyards are for berries and belly laughs. The research showed that people are willing to have their backyards be a little bit more messy. Your front yard is like, you're showing the world that you really take care of everything. People are less willing to take some risks in the appearance of their front yard. So this is trying to get some people to just commit to not fertilize your backyard. And if they see that their world does not end, then maybe they're willing to also do it in the front yard during the next year. This what starts here can end up here. This is our older campaign. This is what we started with, really trying to show that causation. And when we did the market testing, I was hoping we were going to get something brand new, but this is what market tested well. People understood it. It was very clear. They got it. So we just kind of went with the old tried and true. And one thing you'll notice in the text here, it says over half of Alachua County residents, 55%, say they don't use fertilizer at all. So we really play with that number because part of this is trying to create a new social norm where it is the norm to not fertilize. So we really are putting that out there. This is similar, but this is using a positive image of a healthy spring, whereas this one was using a negative image. And then you get different reactions from different groups there. This is really playing with that. Are you one of the 55? So trying to show, you probably can't tell which of your neighbors are the ones that aren't fertilizing. And okay, well, maybe it's okay. Maybe I can be one of those people also. This one market tested so well. This actually, people really loved this concept of showing a funnel of the fertilizer going down to our groundwater, but we could not get any billboards that would, one, let us paint it red, or that would commit that everything would line up perfectly. If it didn't line up, it wouldn't work. So we used it as kind of like you see pictured here, just an image. We didn't really do it as a billboard. This is Photoshop. And you have to be careful not to take yourself too seriously. So the text here, okay, we know it doesn't really work exactly like this. We needed to make sure that people understood we're not saying that it's completely like a funnel, that your roots are going to take up some of the fertilizer. You don't want to lose credibility. We did a mailer. We partnered with our utility, went out to 70,000 customers. Anytime you can get direct mail is great. These are some of our billboards. I call this one Big Yellow. No need to interpret here. It's very clear there is a ban on fertilizer. And we targeted this near the big box stores that sell fertilizer. Point of sale sign, I already showed you this. So this we go and hand deliver to all of the stores that sell fertilizers. This, I know you can't read it, so we did a half-page Gainesville Sun ad. And this is so that we could really, fertilizer issues, it's not simple. Everyone points to, oh, it's not lawns, it's agriculture, it's septic. So I was able to address that in this article. And when someone's reading a paper, they're primed to be reading. So we give them something to read and really explain the issue. There's research saying that if people pledge to a behavior change, they're more likely to follow through. So we have a pledge here. We've got t-shirts and bumper stickers that we'll give people if they sign the pledge. We were all signed up to be in farmers markets on the side of town where most of the fertilizer and irrigation use is. And then COVID happened. So we've not been able to get out and do these parts of the campaign, but we will be, whenever it's safe to do so, we'll be out there. So results, it's really important to measure your results. So we're going to be doing a survey in the fall of 2020. And not only are we going to be reporting, self-reported behavior change, but we built in money with an engineering firm to calculate load reduction. So if people made this change in behavior, what does that mean for how much nitrogen is making it to our springs? And so that's really important because when I'm trying to get grant money, everyone wants to know, what are your metrics? How much nitrogen will you prevent from getting out into the water? So hopefully we'll be able to get some numbers there, and we'll do also best case scenario that if everyone listened to Stacie, would we save the world? So we'll get to have a range of calculations, which should help us with getting future funding. This is my contact information. Our website is under construction, but still there's a lot of materials there. So you can go there and, you can send me an email, give me a call if you have questions. And I think we'll open it up to questions. I do have a couple other videos we could show, but let's see if there's some good questions first. Yeah, so if you email me here, I will send you our files, and we are fine. We encourage other areas to modify our materials to meet their needs. If you're not working with a local government that can put their logo on there, you might be able to just cut ours off and hang it up there because it helps. People move around the state, so I want them doing the right behavior in Brevard so that if they move up here to Alachua County, they're doing the right thing. So any of our materials, we're happy to share. Hi, Nanette. I know. Enforcement is tough. It's sometimes easy for government to pass rules, but then not put the budget behind it to have the staff. I mean, my group in water resources, we are a staff of 10. We're not just doing fertilizer, we're doing a lot of things, but I'm very lucky to have that staff that we can do that enforcement because it's very important. Because if a landscaping company is doing the right thing and they lose business to another company that's willing to fertilize in the ban, then that's not fair. So we need to make sure that we're having a level playing field. So I'm sorry to hear that it's not being enforced anymore in Tampa. Yeah, and our ordinance, we did not exempt your plants. So if you were here in Alachua County, you really shouldn't be putting that fertilizer down in the ban months, just even on those plants. I think if you're using small amounts, and you're not getting a big rain event, or that's washing it off or pushing it down, um, but you could try using alternatives. You could try using some of the composted materials or some manure. Um, you could also see what happens if you skip it for a year, or just use less than the recommended. Some of this I think is trial and error, as long as you're erring on the side of caution and not trying to use more. But I am not a horticulturist, so um, I can't give you specific recommendations for palm, but your extension agents might be able to help. But I always say, like with people's lawns, with irrigation, I always tell people, there's the IFAS recommendations, but try slowly ratcheting it back. And if you're not seeing issues, then you just save some water and reduce your bill. Okay. So that question, so I'm hearing that people can't hear Valerie asking the question. So that question was about using some fertilizer on palms. And then the question from Nanette about Tampa was that they have a retail ban too, but it's not being enforced. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so someone asked about putting dog waste in plastic. Isn't it bad for the landfill? So when we did that program and we designed that in 2009, I did extensive research on can we do um, can we do like biodegradable bags, or can people do composters, and really putting it in the plastic bag was the best scenario. I have reached out to the solid waste professors at UF to figure out if, I've heard a theory that sometimes putting some organic matter in the landfill can kind of help the waste break down over time, that maybe it it isn't that bad. But her question was, is it bad to put it down the toilet? It depends. I mean, not obviously not in the plastic, but if you put the pet waste into the toilet and then flush the toilet, it's probably fine. I mean, depending on, if you have a septic system that isn't working that great, even if you have a septic system that's working like it's designed to, it's not designed to remove nutrients. So you might have more nitrogen and phosphorus going out. So from when we researched it, and that was in 2009, maybe it's worth us looking into it again, really putting it in the plastic bags and putting it in the trash can was the best solution. And mostly the bag is to protect the solid waste employees that are emptying the trash, because pet waste really does transmit a lot of diseases. So you really want to be careful with it. Yeah, so the question was, do I have information showing how effective regulation is versus education? And I don't, because I always do a combination. So I don't know how we would tease it out. So, for example, with this fertilizer grant I have, we originally were hoping to design, what is the effectiveness of our campaign, just our education. But then all of a sudden, I've got this new ban we're enforcing too. So, really, the results are going to be, what is the effectiveness of regulation combined with education? Um, yeah, it's difficult because, typically you don't do regulation without education, because you need people to understand why you're doing the regulation and that you're doing it at all. But it's a great question. Yeah, so Nanette asked a good question. If we have any mechanism in our rule to make sure that the soil moisture sensors or the rainfall shut-off devices are still working after they're installed. So we did put into the edits we did in 2019 that irrigation systems need to be inspected annually. I think about irrigation systems like a car. You can't just drive your car forever and expect it to work fine. There's a lot of moving parts. People need to be inspecting them. We're not requiring anyone to send in any proof of inspection, but we also built into that your system needs to be functioning properly, including your rainfall shut-off device. So it would be a little bit more complaint based, that if someone noticed, their neighbor's always irrigating in the rain, or if our staff noticed it when we were out and about, we would have a mechanism to get somebody to fix it. Um, but we're not actively like going out to every house and checking them. We are doing this thing called irrigation tune-ups, which is voluntary. We're not doing them right now because of COVID, where we run people's systems and we give them recommendations. So that would be something, we might be able to figure out during those if someone's soil moisture sensor is disconnected or not working. Yeah, there are fertilizer regulations in Orange County. They have, I believe, they have a summer ban, but not the winter ban. And I think they exempted the landscape professionals. So homeowners could not use the nitrogen and phosphorus, but the landscapers could if they took the green industries class. I'm pretty sure that's Orange County. You could always shoot me an email and I'll send you a list. The Sierra Club has a great list of what all the different counties and municipalities, what they've adopted. Yeah, there was a comment about an area doing Titusville, I think it was, doing education but not regulation around fertilizer. Um, and it is challenging. I mean, it takes political will. It takes leaders that are willing to take the heat, and then the staff. We're really lucky here in Alachua County. We have commissioners that are very committed to protecting our water quality. I mean, passing the summer ban was not easy. We had a lot of opposition from the industry because it's a huge change in their model. I get it, it's big. Um, and IFAS extension, or IFAS, didn't support it either. So it took some strong leadership, and it's taking our staff to implement it. But I am happy to speak with any of my counterparts in local government. I've learned from so many that came before me, including Nanette that's on here, that I'm always willing to work with any other local government to try to help them get rules in place. I think that's it. I really appreciate having an audience. I really miss talking to people about water right now in COVID. I wish I could see all your faces. But it takes all of us, and it takes, we really need to be pushed past the pointing fingers. Like I didn't really go into it, but with the fertilizer campaign, things that really came up was people saying, hey, quit blaming landscapes, it's agriculture. And agriculture, it's not us, it's septic systems. And you've got the septic system, it's not us, it's the municipal wastewater plant. So rather than us all pointing the fingers, I say, we're all guilty. We're all part of the problem. Let's all be part of the solution. And rather than looking in what your neighbor's doing, figure out what you can personally do and see what we can do for each of these sectors that are part of the issue. So hopefully we'll push past that. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. So that's from Valerie and from me. So thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing from